You're listening to Changing Reality. Changing Reality, where we bend reality all across the world. Only on WQHS Radio. So hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Changing Reality. Welcome one, welcome all. If this is your first time watching, where have you been? This is the place to be. And if you're a returning audience member, thank you guys for tuning in. You know we love your support. You know that this show's all for you guys. So thank you for coming on board. So if this is your first time watching, Changing Reality is essentially a show that features phenomenal people from all walks of life who are in essence changing their own reality. And through this show, we'll have the opportunity to interview some truly brilliant minds, from social change makers, entrepreneurs, industry leaders, to even business owners, artists, musicians, and inspiring individuals from all across the world who, by sharing their stories, by sharing their expertise, we can hopefully pick out some little nuggets of wisdom that we can apply to our own daily lives and through our own journeys as well. And I wanted to do this show simply because I am a huge believer in the power of stories. And I feel like there are a lot of people out there who do phenomenal things and make waves in the lives of those around them. And by hearing these stories, we get a little bit more clarity in the things that we do as well. And to show you how much stories have been integral to my life and how I've seen the impact of them in the lives of those around me, I actually founded and run a youth movement called Ascendance back at home in Malaysia, which is where I'm from, that today not only works with our Malaysian Ministry of Education, but works with over 28 countries and global education partners to provide an alternative education platform for any student who wants to change their reality. So we work with students from elementary all the way up to college through various experiential learning programs, sessions, projects that help them discover what they love, what they're passionate about, go out there and get real world hands-on experience, and come back and build their own careers that not only create meaningful impact for themselves, but for those around them as well. And we've been fortunate over the last few years to work with over 35,000 students, 970 over communities, 28 countries, and of course, incubated countless number of student-run projects and social enterprises run by kids as young as 8 to 25 years old. And the reason they've been able to do all of this is simply because of stories. It's because of kind individuals who have gone out there, taken the time out of their busy schedules to actually share about the things that made a difference to them, share about their lessons, their experiences, so that we can kind of absorb that information and shorten our own learning curves. And because of individuals like that, I've seen all of this impact. They've impacted my life as well. And I'm really passionate about bringing these stories to every single one of you so that you too can figure out kind of the hidden cheat codes to changing your reality. So if you guys have anything that you want to talk about, any industries you want to explore, any questions you need answering, let us know and we'll try our best to address it some way or another on the show. And today's speaker is someone who probably is exemplary in the phrase changing reality. She's truly an inspiration, not just to me, but I think to women everywhere around the world who are taking the business world by storm. So born in New York, our speaker has a long list of amazing accolades, media appearances, and successes in her brilliant career, where she actually started off in law, practiced law at the Assistant State's Attorney's Office, and worked as an attorney at Legal Aid Society. In 2003, she actually joined Corcoran Group, an American real estate firm, and she eventually served as their senior managing director for their East Side headquarters. She eventually, in 2013, joined Brown Harris Stevens as their senior vice president, and in 2017 was named co-president of the group as well. More so, in less than a year later, she was appointed as the company's first CEO. And as CEO today, she oversees Brown Harris Stevens' 50 over offices, more than 2,300 agents across New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Florida. And it was under her leadership that they have actually grown into one of the largest and most successful privately held real estate companies across the US, with the highest revenue sales per price agent in the country. So since she was named CEO, her passion for helping people, her passion for making change in a sense, and her law background as well, have also helped drive change, not only through the work she does in her personal life, but within Brown Harris and Stevens as well. She's an advocate for social change through her work with several organizations and even received The Remy's Kenneth R. Jardy Humanitarian Award back in 2021 for her outstanding service to the community. She's been featured on multiple news channels, medias, and as I said, received several extremely prestigious accolades. She was ranked now, I think, among the most powerful women in the U.S. Real estate world. She was ranked one of the top trailblazers in U.S. real estate by RIS Media, and so on and so forth. So today, I'm so excited to bring to you this champion of social change, philanthropy, real estate, law, who is taking the world by storm. Let me welcome our guest speaker, the CEO of Brown Harrison Stevens, Bess Fredman, to our virtual stage.
Nice to see you.
Thank you so much. And as I said, I think your introduction itself deserves its own episode because you are just too phenomenally inspiring. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. You are a superstar. You definitely deserve this your own show because you are incredible at communicating and have energy that is, unmatched, I think. So thank you for that beautiful introduction. So nice.
Well, you're way too kind, and as I said, I know we're having this as one of our last few episodes of the summer, so I hope that the heat has been treating you well. You're ready to kind of jump into the last quarter of the year. I'm very curious in the sense I know, like before we jump into the actual interview, that you are a mother of two. You have brilliant children who are also off to college. So, how busy are your summers in a sense? You probably have family, you have work, you have lots of things happening at the same time. What is a typical summer day for you?
Well, I do have two children. My daughter's 20 and she's in her third year in college, and my son's 17. He's in boarding school, and they're both right now away, which I don't like. I miss them a lot, but so I have a lot of freedom. So I'm basically at work all the time in the summer because I'm all by myself and I can just come in and work nonstop. So I don't know if that's a good thing. I haven't really taken much breaks this summer. I've just been too busy. I take advantage of that time because my kids will be home next week and I will spend like a full week with them and just like have great dinners and talk and catch up, and they will educate me. That's what happens as a mom. You learn they teach you everything. And so that will happen next week. Until then, I'll be working.
All right. Well, we'll wait with bated breath until your kids come and rescue you and return the favor of being adult-ish children by making sure that you're well rested and cared for. Like that's their job now. The switch is flipped. But as I said, I think you're someone so inspirational. And during our previous chats, your journey started when you yourself was a teenager, when you yourself was a student. So I think many times when we look at truly successful people like you, it can be very, very hard to process that you are a normal human being with a family and with a history in a sense, and that you did not just emerge one day as the CEO of this company in a sense. So tell us a little bit about where your journey started. I think you had your first career decision when you were 11 years old. That's where you started, right?
I mean, yes, I did. I worked when I started at 11. I was cleaning houses in the neighborhood. But I would just back up a second, Harsha, because I appreciate all the nice things that you've said. But I was very fortunate. I hit the lottery in the sense that I had a mom and dad at home. We had no, it wasn't that we had money because we did not. And both of my parents are high school graduates. They didn't go to college. But they really were loving people and affectionate and kind and supportive and generous and helped everybody along the way. They were sort of these hippies. And so growing up, I saw a lot of that, and they had incredible belief and confidence in me. They always made me feel like I could do anything. They trusted me. They let me do everything on my own. And so because of that, I felt empowered. And so, yes, I wanted to have a job as like soon as I could. So I went around the neighborhood and I volunteered and I cleaned houses. I mean, that was the first foray into work. I babysat. I worked at a fruit stand. I worked selling chocolates. I worked in a card store. I did makeup. I mean, I've had so many jobs. I worked in a pizzeria. I got fired from that pizzeria when I was 16 because my friend Myron came in and I gave him and his friend a free slice, and the owner caught me not charging them and he fired me on the spot. I mean, I mean, that's a true story. It's part of life. But I was a teenager. These were my friends. They came in. I wanted to slip them a slice of pizza. You're not supposed to do that. And these are learning lessons, like, so, oh, I worked at Record Town. I mean, I worked at Macy's. I've had so many jobs. I worked at Barney's, but all of those equip you for the real world, like for when you get out there and you figure out what it is that you're good at and what you want to pursue with excellence. And that's what your peer group, all of your colleagues in college and graduate school are trying to figure out, I bet. What is it that they're good at and what do they want to pursue? And they have to figure that out. It's not easy.
No, and I like the way you linked all of these different things, because that process of discovery, I feel, is something that we often sit at home and agonize about. But you were a little bit different. You went out there, you tried things out, you experienced many different things, and also that part where you mentioned it's about family, it's about the environment you grew up in, that essentially shapes the way you look at these things, and it makes you perceptive or less perceptive to some of these opportunities. So I'm going to take some time out to embarrass you right off the bat and just
Oh
have some
God,
really cute
thanks.
family
Yes,
stories.
that is a photo of us before we're going to temple. And there's my mom, there's me. I fell off like the monkey bars and I sprained my arm. My brothers, my older brother and younger brother, and my dad. Yeah, we have a lot of family photos. My mom took a lot of photographs of us together. And what you can see, what we were really lucky is that my brothers as well, was that we had a lot of love. And people think that love is innate, like you're just born with it. You're not. Love is taught. It's like if you've ever seen an animal that, is aggressive or bites, it's because they were abused or hurt. Same with human beings, and so I think I really was fortunate. I can never complain because I had parents that believed in me, trusted me, and loved me. And I think if any kid has that, they're already a step ahead of everybody else.
No, that is beautifully put, because as you said, like, it's not something that everyone has, and at times it can be, at least for me, who grew up in a very lovely household as well, like, it's a privilege, and sometimes it's nice to think about that in a sense, that and I think that's a very integral part of a lot of people's life that we take for granted. So very nicely said. I'm very curious about you at 11 going around cleaning houses. I'm a bit concerned. I don't think any, like, my parents would allow me to do that. This was you at 10, right? You were saying, I think, when we
Oh,
last spoke.
this I was actually 6, I think, because I wore
Oh,
glasses in first grade. Only first grade. I hated them. I threw them away one time and I had to get another pair because I was so embarrassed. Everybody kept calling me Four Eyes in first grade in Mrs. Cox's class. And I was so embarrassed that I had these glasses. I just felt like everybody was making fun of me. And at the same time, I had no front teeth and I had ponytails. So you can imagine. I mean, my mom thought I was the cutest little thing you ever saw, but I was embarrassed. I thought I looked like a dud. But it was part of, growing up. It's funny now when I look at those photos. My kids have so much fun with them. They think it's hilarious.
and no, but that's a good story, and I think we should talk about, like, you as a kid with, all the cute hairstyles and all the cute, like looks and stares, in a sense. What do you think was some of the most formative memories of your childhood that made you who you are today?
Wow, that's a good question. So something I remember, I must have been maybe like 5 or so when I was with my mom and we were walking and I grew up was born in Troy, New York, which is upstate. And my mom and I were downtown Troy walking. She was holding my hand and we walked and there was a little girl, she must have been younger than me, that was on the ground, dirty, and she was playing with a bottle that was broken. And I remember my mom just like bent down and offered the little girl a quarter to take the bottle away from her. And the little girl, like, looked at her and she gave my mom the bottle. My mom gave her the quarter. And at the time, I didn't understand it. Then we walked and my mom, then got rid of the bottle. She threw it away. And I didn't understand why my mom did that. But now, as I got older, I started to reflect and think about all the times that, like, my parents, they would pick up hitchhikers and like bring them to the bus station and buy them a ticket, or they would bring somebody in a restaurant and buy them lunch, or pay for somebody to go to school, or and they didn't have money, but they always felt like they had to take care of human beings as they went through life. And I saw my dad wake up in the morning and like talk to the guys picking up the garbage and ask them how they are. And like it was always like we saw everybody and it didn't matter who you were. And I saw a lot of that growing up, which is part of a big piece of who I am and how I see people, that everybody, we're all human first. And we have to take care of each other, no matter who you are, what you do, how much money you have. And that's where we've gotten a little confused in today's society. There's so much polarization and separation and this politics bullshit that we're forgetting about why we're here and that we have to take care of each other.
Very enlightened in the sense, and I can definitely see how that is formative because you have had a whole career of first in law, like representing underrepresented kids, eventually fighting for those who I think can't always express them this in the courthouse in a sense, and eventually even in the work you do now in the philanthropy and your organization. I have been reading up, especially recently, with some laws being overturned and all of that. You guys have been at the forefront in a sense, making sure that everyone has equal access, everyone has the things that they need to grow and strive. And I think we need more CEOs who had a lot of love and and have a lot of these formative experiences as well, because the
Well,
world
don't you
just
think so, Harsha? Wouldn't you say? I mean, you're a young woman. You have a big future ahead of you. When you have a platform and you have people who listen to you, when you have a platform and as you grow and get more power and influence, don't you, Harsha, have an obligation to do good things and help and send positive messages and give facts, and do
Mhm.
the right thing? And I think anybody who has a platform or followers or influences anybody has an obligation to social responsibility to do things the right way and not spew hate and not be negative and try to support each other. I think your generation, you're Gen Z, right? Are you Gen Z?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
I mean, Gen Zers, I sat down with a bunch of Gen Zers last month, 12 interns, and we talked. We had a really good conversation. I was so blown away by how political they were, how smart, how much they were craving to help like climate and do so many different things. And I said, now I'm really hopeful for the future because your generation gives me hope because you guys are very ambitious, focused, aggressive, and you want to change things. So I'm inspired. I was a little concerned because we were it was taking some time, and millennials they're a very different generation. They've done a lot of good things too, but it's a different mindset. But Gen Zers give me incredible hope for the future. Really give me hope.
Well, thank you. That is very, very kind of you to say. And it's interesting. I'm just going to jump to this conversation for a second
Yes.
because one of the things that I often see is that recently, especially with the rise of Gen Z entering the workforce, with them kind of making a lot of noise again, as you said, fighting for the climate crisis resolutions, fighting for world problems that they believe should be addressed in a sense. And many people look at this generation as very demanding, or on one side, or really smart and political. There's many like various views on that. And they're like, from the word I've been getting, is they're not waiting, or we're not waiting around for things to change. We want to make that change. As someone like you who is extremely successful, and I would say at the top level, what do you think is the responsibility of other CEOs, other C-suite executives, other people who have led their industries in a sense, in response to these things and in response to the demands in a way of Gen Z? Is it something that it's a passing fade, you just like ignore them, to go away, or does there lie a certain responsibility for the successes out there to respond to what Gen Z are saying?
Well, I mean, there was a time where CEOs and people in positions of power were very neutral and detached on any sort of policies, anything that was going on. They didn't take a stance because it was business, 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 which is important. Obviously, you're running a business. But in the last, I would say 5 years or so, it's been more necessary for us to voice our opinion and to be supportive of things that matter, like a woman's right to choose, etc. And so the Gen Zers, the one thing I would say that I would ask them, if I could ask every Gen Zer, is to be a little bit open and flexible, and when we have to ask questions and understand things. Because remember, I'm a Gen Xer. I did not grow up with technology in hand. We grew up as there was two genders, male and female. That was it. We didn't grow up with a lot of these things. So now with non-binary and all of the different things that exist today, which is fantastic, we have to be able to engage and ask questions without getting attacked and canceled because we don't necessarily have all the answers to things, and we want to know and people want to learn. But when there's this like, oh, people get offended so easily. We have to be able to have discussions and talk about things to better ourselves. And that's the one thing that I think Gen Z has to understand, is that we're learning. I'm learning. I'm lucky because I have kids who explain a lot to me, but not everybody has that advantage like I do to understand what's going on today. And so, I think we need a little bit of patience, understanding, and communication, because we want to work with you. We want to work with everybody and make change and do the right thing, but it's going to take time. The people in Tennessee don't necessarily understand all of this. They're in a very isolated environment in certain little towns that none of this makes sense to them. What do you mean non-binary? What does that even mean? So you have to be people have to understand, that it takes a little bit of time. This is why Donald Trump got elected, because there was no voice for people who were disconnected. And he became that vehicle to say, I'm here, I'm going to represent you, blah, 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 and build the wall and all this crap. And people were like, oh yeah, finally somebody who represents us. And that's, we got to remember, people need to be seen. That's why Hillary didn't get in, because she's on stage with Jay-Z. That's not relatable to people who don't have clean drinking water. Like, we need clean drinking water. We have to take care of each other and talk. We got to have these conversations, Harsha. You know that.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with that completely, and especially that point you said, we have to be able to have these conversations, knowing that that on one side we may not know all the facts, but and on the other side knowing that just because they don't know all the facts doesn't mean that that they have an inherent malign kind of like response to things. Sometimes people just don't know, and that's perfectly fine. I come from Southeast Asia, so we have a very different backdrop to a lot of these things. And I remember coming to the US, I felt so dumb because it's like yes, I learn about a lot of things online, but then when I actually speak to people about this, I'm like, the gaps in my knowledge about things like made me feel, for at least a little while, a little bit at a disadvantage. And I think that at times stops people from advocating for things that they want to advocate for, because they're afraid that if they slip up and if they say something or they do something wrong, that ends up kind of a like they end up getting attacked on the other side. And I think that's very true for as I said, many people who are in positions to help, but they may not have all of the right vocabulary the Gen Z, I would say, are on their little checklist of wokeness at times. Sorry, I don't need to use that word, but
No, but it's okay. I mean, that's again such a good point. I do believe that most people want to. I mean, of course, we have the fringes, the far right
yeah,
and the far left. That's the fringe. The majority of people want to understand. They want to get it. They want to learn. They want to. You don't want any kid to walk around feeling like he's not seen if they're struggling and feel like they were born a female, and then they feel like now they identify as non-binary, and that's how they feel and that's what they want. You don't want that kid to feel like you can't acknowledge that. We want to acknowledge everybody in the right way, but you have to like give us a moment and talk to people, explain it, educate, because it doesn't just automatically happen. Like you said, you don't just wake up and you're at the top of the ladder. You have to work towards it, and you have to work towards everything and understanding each other. It's like different cultures, different religions. We have to be a little bit more patient with each other and listen. We have to really listen to each other.
I can definitely see where your passion for law comes, and how amazing you must have been in the courtroom, in a sense, representing these voices. And taking us back a little bit, many times, like I think, as you said, most people, in like 80% of people, I'd say safely around the world, we believe in helping others. We believe in making sure everyone has the right to feel included. Everyone has the right to a happy, healthy, and economically viable life, in a sense. But again, this is something like the world has always had inequalities, in a sense, and it's going to take some time for us to clean that up. When you were in also deciding on what you wanted to do next, you chose a career that would go around and help people who are a little bit more disprivileged, who might not have the same access to these equalities. In a sense, you chose to pursue law. Why? Like,
Yeah.
what inspired you at that point as a teenager to think, I am going to help people? Like, I'm sure like it was a big decision. You're picking your career, so why?
I mean, I think a law degree, whether you practice or not, Harsha, is such a good thing to have, because it teaches you how to think and analyze things, and also helps you to understand what the laws are. So if you have and you can get a legal education, it's very good. But I wanted to be a lawyer because I saw this woman, her name is Bella Abzug, let her rest in peace. She passed away some time ago. She was one of the first women in the House of Representatives. And my mom took me to hear her speak at RPI in Troy when I was 9. And she talked about women, how they belonged in the House of Representatives and how women can be in all sorts of places in government, and they should show up on the scene, and they deserve rights, and they should have jobs, and they're not just in the kitchen cooking, like, so I was like, she's a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer. And I manifested that as a kid. And so I always knew, I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a voice. I'm going to help people. And there was like no second thought about it. It was just what I was going to do. So I did that. I went to law school, loved it. I worked in the prisons a bit when I was in law school. I did a lot of community service, which I loved. And you'll see, look, if you look at our prison system, the US has 25% of the world's prison population, and the majority of the people that are in a prison are poor and they're minorities. That is not a coincidence. Okay. There's a lot of scapegoating going on. There's street and sweet crime. And so we need people who can be good advocates for others. And that's why I wanted to do it. And my first job was as an assistant state's attorney, a prosecutor. But in that position, you can really help people because you can listen and you can decide what you're going to do. Give them a second chance, let them get anger management, let them get counseling. And you see a lot of people are just struggling and they make mistakes. I've made mistakes. Some people just don't get caught for them, And so it was really a wonderful experience. That was probably one of my favorite jobs ever. Working with people, navigating that, listening to their stories, trying to help, juggling cases, speaking in a courtroom. I mean, I have to tell you, it's something I hold with great pride, that job. And my boss, Danny Barnett, who's still a great friend of mine today, he sent me that bust of Bobby Kennedy, which is behind me, inspired me because he did everything right. He had incredible conviction on how to take care of people the right way. And he taught me. He was one of my great mentors in life. And so, yeah, I did. That job was really such a wonderful thing for me, an opportunity. So if anybody is interested in pursuing law, I really encourage it. It's still something I love greatly. Really, I love it.
I think law loves you back. You won amazing awards. I think this is an assistant. I think this was an award you actually or
actually
your
badge. That's my
Great.
badge. When I was a prosecutor, I had that badge, and my boss let me keep it, which you're not supposed to do really, but he let me keep it, so I have it. It's like, it's a pretty cool thing when you have a badge. And I worked really closely with the police when I was a prosecutor. And I have to tell you, like, I know we need criminal justice reform and we need to improve and get rid of police officers that are not good. And, we've had so many challenges, but the police are really hardworking and they really care about what they're doing for the most part. And I think, like, when that narrative was around defund the police, I know even my own kids were like sitting around the table talking about how upset they were when George Floyd was murdered. We all were devastated. The country stood still for a minute when that happened. And that was horrible. And so, but again, slogans on Twitter saying things like that only hurts us, because then all the police that are out there working feel dehumanized and don't want to do their job. It takes away from all the good people, and that's not a way to improve it. Things are complicated, and we have to make real change by not changing language, but changing laws and helping and building and doing and talking. And so, I think that we have to work with our police, not sort of polarize them and make them the demons. I think that was a big mistake by the Democrats when they did that.
And I think it goes back to our conversation earlier on being willing to have those conversations and not again stick to catchy slogans and or like don't have hard and fast rules on this kind of stuff, in a sense, because at the same time sometimes people want to learn, and sometimes they may not have the right vocabulary to do so, they may not have the right thoughts about it, but it doesn't mean they're not willing to change and thinking about that.
Well, Harsha, the other thing is that, in the last couple of years, we've got into this sort of these tweets that are like 2-word, 3-word slogans. It's like, build the wall, fake news, like all this stuff. And people just take that in. And most topics, you could discuss any topic from immigration to criminal justice to reform to women's rights to reproductive rights to the law to whatever you want. And it's complicated. Climate. You can't just tweet out a sentence and think you've solved the problem. You have not. Everything is deeply complicated, and we have to stop trying to stir the pot with that kind of stuff. It's very irresponsible to do that, I believe. I think our society deserves more conversations and thought before you just send something out that's very hurtful and damaging to a lot of people.
Who knew our parents were 100% right when they said social media was bad for you about 10 years ago? Like they could have never have known. But no, I completely agree. And I think that sometimes we sacrifice like the nuances of a conversation for easy to understand but very, I would say, monolith, like tidbits of information to stir out the pot, to basically get information out there quickly, that we don't always look at the nuances. This is something that you again would have seen more than anyone else. Tell me about some of the cases or some of the situations from your time as a legal aid or practicing law that were more complicated or than meets the eye in a sense.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of, have a lot of memories from, for example, when I worked at legal aid here in New York City, I worked in the juvenile rights division. And I remember I went in to talk to this young kid who was charged with robbery. He was probably about 15 years old. It's like this beautiful kid, he's black, and he just, he was a kid by himself from foster care to foster care. And I remember going in to talk to him and trying to figure out what we were going to do. And he had this red bandana. And I was like, dude, don't wear that in court because they're going to know you're involved with gangs. He's like, look, that's all I got. This is it. That's my family. That's it. And I was thinking, like, again, this is where privilege, where we're so lucky, where we have family and we have all this stuff. This kid was banged around, pushed around, home to home. Nobody loved him. What do you expect is going to happen to these kids when we neglect them? And so, I just felt like this kid, he could have been a superstar. He was so handsome, so smart, articulate, and he wanted to be loved, he wanted to be seen, but he had nothing else. And I think a lot of our kids, especially today, even worse now, because of social media and all the things, it's really hard. That's why depression and suicide and drug use, all of that has gone way up, because kids, especially kids who don't have parents and guidance and scaffolding, are not being seen and not being taken care of. And that's why you have school shootings. Kids feel like they are not being seen. And we have to do such a better job at that. And I just remember that I felt like so like touched by this one kid because he was by himself. He had nobody. He had nobody. Like, you have your folks, your parents, I have my family, but there are people that are out there that don't have anybody who's looking out for them. And that's why, again, teachers should be the heroes of our society, because they're the ones that see our kids every day, no matter what, and they can be our saviors. So I hope that we can learn to cherish them also a little bit more. So
I agree. The only monolith sentence that I could completely agree on wholeheartedly is that support teachers more, in a sense, and send them the love and the compassion and the resources, the tools, the funds that they need to actually do the work that they want. I work with a lot of teachers, and it's not that they don't care. Most of the time, if anything, which seldom does, falls between the cracks with them, it's simply because they're just overworked, don't
and
have
underpaid.
all the sources,
Overworked. And we don't, I mean, I would think we cherish these reality star shows and TV people, whatever, who do nothing for us and our kids. But
Yeah.
our teachers that see your kids every single day in their formative years, they should be our heroes that we should love and nourish and make sure they're paid and taken care of. And as a society, we have totally failed that test, man. I mean, I remember every one of my teachers, and the ones that really impacted me and that I thought about and cared about me and did special things and made me work harder. I mean, that's the secret sauce. That's where we can make a difference if we could just like tune into that more. But we're so distracted and so focused on being an influencer and having likes and being cool and looking good and having money and all that stuff that we lost our point. We lost what matters most. I'm optimistic. I'm just saying we need to try to get back to center a little bit.
No, I agree. And I think that these are conversations that need to be more often had. You are someone who is I would say that is looked up to, and for a lot of things in a sense, whether you're talking about the markets, whether you're talking about the state of society right now. You've been on so many shows, media appearances. I'm just gonna like
That was a good hair day, that one. Oh, that was
that was a
Fox.
really good hair day. Like, and then you have a lot of amazing. Do you ever have bad hair days? Sorry,
Oh
but
my
like
God, I have honey. We all have days where we don't look our cutest, we don't look our best. That is okay. We just show up. We show up the best way that we can. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard to pull it together. We need days where we're just like, okay, I'm off. I'm in ripped jeans and clogs today, and I'm not going to be doing much. Hanging out at
yeah,
home, right?
yeah, greasy hair days. Yeah, agreed.
Greasy hair, exactly.
But one of the things that you are really good at having these conversations, and I feel like many times as like we have a little bit of a communication breakdown even on simple things like as you said, making sure teachers get the respect and the admiration that they deserve. What are your tips in a sense, or how do you stay composed and able to carry a message through in a sense? How do we have these effective conversations?
I mean, that's really hard, and like, I mean, it's sometimes, what happens to us, Harsha, is that like if you hear something that really hurts you, you immediately decide you want to react, right? You
Yeah.
want to say something, you want to do something, you want to hurt that person. I have learned, and it's weird that I've learned this through my son because he's gone through a lot of stuff, and he taught me a little bit about this. Is that because he's reactive, as have I been? Is that you take a moment and you take space to think about it, and then you choose how you're going to respond and sort of be detached and have self-control. And if you can do that, you're going to have better discussions. And if you can also listen to people, like when you're talking, if I'm listening with the intent to hear what you're saying versus respond, you're going to get a much better discussion. But if you're talking and I'm not listening to you and I'm just thinking how I'm going to respond, it's not working. Like when you ask something, I have to like take it in, listen to what you said, and decide, process it, and then come back to you. But we just kind of just snap at each other all the time. And I would say for anybody who wants to communicate and be composed, try to be detached, try to have control, try to listen with intention, and then respond accordingly. It's okay to take like 10 seconds to think about it before you respond, right? And then come back and really listen to people. People, so they know when you're listening. And I also know when somebody's doing this and they're like on their phone and they're not paying attention. You know when I'm with you, and you know when I'm not. And when you're with somebody, give them your undivided attention. Show them that you're really there for them, and they will appreciate it. And so I think we can all do that. The one thing I would just say, I want to mention this because I get some like pushback on this. You know how when you're growing up, people always say you should do what you love, pursue what you love. What do you love? You should pursue it. I do think that's not good advice. I do think you should pursue what you're good at. You should pursue what you're good at. Find out what you are really good at. Like, what is it? What is Harsha great at? I think you're great at this show, for example, which you are. You should pursue this with excellence and keep working at it and build it and go from there. But sometimes, like what I love, I'm not great at, and I shouldn't pursue it. I should do it as a hobby. So I think kids should try to figure out what they're really good at and focus on that. And that's where you can be very successful and do well and hone your craft to be the best at what you do. That would be my best like piece of advice for people. I tell my kids that, and they kind of roll their eyes, but they've heard it enough. They're like, not another self-help talk, mom, please, not another one. They make fun
Well,
of me all the time, Harsha. They make fun of me.
just tell them it's until they're 21, and then you charge them for every session. Just like you get it free now. It's the
I'm gonna
freebie.
gonna do that. I'm definitely gonna do that.
No, but that is a good point in a sense. The question that I'd have to ask to that, and maybe you can answer with your experience, because you've been not only successful at one thing, you were successful at law, then you went and was successful in real estate again, ridiculously so. How do people figure out what they're good at in a sense? Is it something like one of the kids I work with asked this really good question. He's 12, and I
Mm.
was very surprised that he thought about this, but he said, is it experience that builds talent, or is it talent that builds experience? Do you get more opportunities to excel at something because you're good at it, or do you become good at it because you have the opportunities to excel?
Mm.
I know,
Wow.
I
What
know.
the 12-year-old asked you that?
Yeah, it was very stressful working with Gen Z, as you said. Like 12-year-olds
Oh
can't be
my,
trusted anymore.
wow. I mean, I think you're good at it, and then it gets you more experience, because if you weren't good at it, you wouldn't be able to have more repetition with it. Because I've
Mhm.
hired people that I like very much but aren't necessarily good, and then you have to move them around, or sometimes they're not in the right place. And sometimes I've hired people that I don't know if they're good, and I see their
Mhm.
personality. I hired this new guy recently here. His name is Josh, and I didn't really know if he was going to be good, but he was amazing personality, smart and willing to do everything. And I said, you know, I'm going to give him a chance. And he is like fantastic, better than I could have even imagined. And he's only getting better and better and better. And I think that you just have a natural flow with things. And if you're not good at something, you're not going to last in it too long, or it's not going to feel good. You're not going to want to get up every day and go do what you're doing. You want to get up. I mean, I don't feel like I work because I love my job so much. I really love, I mean, there's a little like few percentage, like yesterday I had one of the roughest days, but for the most part, I absolutely love the people I work with. I love my team of agents. They're the best agents in the industry. I mean, they inspire me. Some, you know, and I'm blessed. The people I work with, they're just all good. Like they're good people. So I don't have a right to complain ever. I just don't. If I do, shut me down.
You okay? I see. Like everything that you say, I can feel the love manifested in the words that you say, which honestly puts me quite speechless in a sense. So I like your responses very much. One
Thank
thing
you,
that I,
Harsha.
you know, one thing that I thought is quite interesting is that you say, like do something that you're good at in a sense, and I agree. I like that. I like the way that you phrased it because it's not just about blindly doing what you're good at. It's just that in a way leads to passion in a sense, figuring out what you're good at. And again, as I said earlier a little bit, sometimes people get a little obsessed with finding their passion, that they don't exactly like that they end up missing it because they're looking for that one thing that they're passionate about. Like they're waiting to fall in love in first sight, and like it's a rom-com, and then and find the job that they love, and stick with it forever. And I think at times that kind of blocks them from actually figuring out what they're good at and actually building something that they love out of it.
But
And
Harsha, you know, I think that you get hints along the way as a kid. If you look back and you really analyze, you can say, huh, I was always writing. I always like to write, or I like to like set things up in my room a certain way, or I was always selling lemonade, or I was running around like with newspapers. You can kind of see what you were like trying to push on, or I
ah,
was playing
that's a
baseball.
point.
You know, like look at the hints in your childhood, things that you like were drawn to. Like, were you always like at sports? Were you a hockey player? Were you a figure skater, gymnast? Like, where were you? Or were you in the library all the time? What were you like? What was getting you? Or were you just nonstop in the music store buying records, listening to music? Were you playing the guitar? Look for the hints in your childhood, because that's the true essence of probably, you know, where the skill is or what you're good at. I mean, that's probably what I think would lead you to the right thing. Now, you may have been playing the guitar and not been good at it, and that's something else that you're gonna find out. But look for the hints along the way. There are hints. Oh, there's always hints.
Look for the that. Okay, I'm gonna steal that. Like every time. No, I'm not. I'm not even joking. I'm gonna steal that, and I'm gonna quote you everywhere because that is a really good way of putting it. Tell me about your how you got into real estate in a sense, because it is very different from law and it's a little bit of a jump. What were the what was the story behind you getting into it? I think you started off as an agent yourself, and looking back, what were the hints that you think like reflected now that you see the whole picture?
So, to answer the first part of that, I was, yeah, working at Legal Aid at the time, had taken maternity leave for my daughter, and I was supposed to go back to work. And I ran into a friend, and my mom had a knitting store called the Wool Gathering on the Upper East Side. And I was in there with my daughter, was like a little baby at the time. And my friend came in, Adrian, who was a knitter, and she said to me, why don't you get into real estate? Because she was selling real estate. You'd be great. You're a lawyer. You're smart. You dress the part, and you can make your own hours. You have flexibility with your daughter. And so I had kind of not wanted to go back to legal aid because it was very like it was 9 to 5, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my daughter. And so I thought it would be a good opportunity to try something new. I mean, I had my law degree. I could try it. So I talked to my mom about it and she thought, yeah, give it a try, see how it goes. So I did it. I pivoted and I right away I started working in real estate, started selling it, and it's very entrepreneurial. And I found it to be, you work with a lot of people, and I had very high emotional intelligence, always did, even as a kid. I could talk to everybody and anybody. I could always get to the front of any line. I was always able to do almost anything. And I always felt, so real estate was so fun. I was like, where has this been all my life when I started? I loved it. And I took off like a rocket ship for me. And I felt like I was so excited by it. And you only get paid for your results when you're an agent. And I just worked really hard. I called people in the newspaper, I met with people, and I built like a little career for myself. And then I got asked to get into management, which I did and I loved. And that's sort of how my career started. But it was really, in real estate, it's a relationship business more than anything. Hall, who I work with here, he and I say that all the time, but it's relationship driven. And if you're good at relationships, you will be great in real estate because you're navigating people, sellers, buyers, renters, landlords, and you're working them through very difficult things, in buying a home, selling a home, the death of a parent, a divorce, a new baby, all that stuff. It's an emotional commodity and it's so sacred. And if you want to get into this, it's not anything like you see on TV. So just cross that out. That's not how it works. I promise you. Just like the Housewives, those shows, that's not what it's like to be a mom raising children. There's no stylist to put your lashes on and quiet the dog. And life is messy and sloppy and busy and crazy and loud. Same thing with real estate. It's a hustle. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of phone calls, and you wouldn't want to watch it on TV because you'd be bored. It's not, what they show on TV is just like the flashy cars and the cute suits and the fun interaction, but that's not what it's about. It's a lot of hard work, but it's a beautiful business and it's a lot of fun, and you can make an enormous amount of money and you can do very well with it. So I encourage people to get into real estate if they're good with working with people.
I we often forget about the people part of it. Just as you were talking, I realized nobody buys a house or a place if there is no major turning point in their life. I mean, buying the house itself would probably be a major turning point in their life, but it's often the act of seeking it out. It symbolizes something new is happening in their life, whether it's gaining independence, whether it's as you said, a death of a family member, starting a new family. There's so many different points that are pivotal, and real estate is just kind of the observer and then kind of the facilitator in helping them transition into this new phase of their life.
I love how you said that, Harsha. And I actually have not thought of it that way, the symbol of something new in their life. I mean, that is so beautifully said. Exactly on point. You got it. That's what it is.
And tell me how you emotional intelligence is something I think everyone talks about, but nobody really knows how to quantify or how to to
How do
explain
you
in a
explain it?
how do you explain it, like in a sense, like IQ has a number. Nobody has a scale for your emotional intelligence. I How do
Yeah, I
you?
mean, how do you quantify, how do you explain it? So here, like, for example, when I was probably like 6 or 7, I used to like go visit all the neighbors. We lived in the suburbs in Troy, and I would go see the neighbors. And I used to go visit Mrs. Moses and her sister Lucy. And Mrs. Moses was probably, I don't know, 85. I was like 6 years old, and her sister Lucy was like 99, and she had these
Wow.
big thick glasses. And I knocked on their door. They would have me come in. I would sit in a chair and I would just talk to them, and they would give me lemonade, and I would tell them stories. They would listen. They loved when I would visit, but I would go and talk to like all these different people. And I think emotional intelligence is the ability to talk to everyone, whether it's Jamie Dimon from Chase, to the person that's working in your mailroom, and treat them the same way and talk to them and listen to them and navigate accordingly. It's just a level of listening and being able to engage with people and really paying attention to them. That's all emotional intelligence is. A lot of people don't have it because they feel uncomfortable and awkward, and they get very nervous, like they would treat somebody differently and they would have a hard time, or they get stressed out, or they freak out, or they nervous chatter. But if you can just remain who you are in the presence of everyone and listen, that's emotional intelligence. It's such a great, it's why Oprah Winfrey is who she is, because probably has the highest emotional intelligence of any person that I've ever observed. Like, she really listens and understands people in a way that is unusual, and it's a gift, and she's honed it over time. And I think it's better all day, every day, than IQ. I'll take it every day. It's the best thing that you can have because it gets you through life in a nicer way, I think.
So if we get this message out there, no one else is gonna say, "I wish I had an IQ like Einstein." They'll say, "I wish I had emotional intelligence like Oprah." That should be the new benchmark of things.
I mean, you want to have some, I mean, you do need to have some, I would say, common sense. I know sense is not common sometimes, but common sense is important. It's so important just to have like simple common sense and not overthink things and be too crazy about stuff. And you have that, and you're in good shape. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. That's for sure. You do not.
You know, one thing that's making me think, I feel like from this conversation, I think that more introverted people seem to have better emotional intelligence from extroverted people, when you really think about it in a sense, because as building on the fact that they listen a little bit more, or they're not as quick to react sometimes, and or not as quick to change, and respond differently to different people. So that's just something that I'll be
I
thinking
think
about.
you're right.
I never thought of this. You are really smart at putting things in perspective. So like I've
You
got to
put
real.
that together. You put that together, Harsha.
Yep. Tell me also about your role using this emotional intelligence as a leader of, again, huge organization. I think it was 2,300 agents right now, of like under this whole organization. In a sense, I have a really cute shot of you in the CEO's room with the phone and everything. So
My messy desk. Yeah. My messy
that's how we
desk.
know you're productive. That's what they say: messier desks, smarter people.
I don't
How do
know about that.
how do you bring everyone in an organization like this together, one that is full of people who are extremely hard at work, who are extremely it's quite, I would say, it has an entrepreneurial factor to it, but it's also a business, it's also a corporate company in a sense. How do you use that emotional intelligence to grow your team, to bring your organization to meet its deliverables and still be happy and healthy in a productive place?
Yeah, but we do have regular meetings and get together and talk and strategize. We do a lot of that. And it's, I would be a fool to think that we're here because of me, because we're not. It is 100% a team sport. I mean, it really is a team sport. The team that is in place, from Hall to Josh, who I mentioned, to Kevin on the West Side, to Steve, who's downtown, Sarah, Itzy. I mean, I could go on, Alan Kersner, the COO. The team that we have in place is phenomenal. And it's not any one person, it's all of us together pushing, growing. And look, we've made mistakes, we've had our fumbles, we're imperfect, but we are a company that is powered by human beings, that also has great technology and all the stuff we need. And we have a lot of heart. I always say we have like this like big heart of a company, that we take care of each other and listen to each other, and we're always focusing on trying to serve our clients. And I think if we constantly do that all the time, and remember, it's not about the garden, it's about the gardening. It's about the process and the journey along the way. And we all keep that in our mind. We try to like take care of each other. And we're privately owned, which gives us a lot of flexibility, and freedom to have fun and do great stuff. We just had a big party in the Central Park Zoo with all of our agents. And we had people from Connecticut, New Jersey, Palm Beach, Miami, and New York City. We had so much fun. We just have such a great, I mean, we have so many good people in the organization. That's the success. It's not me. I mean, listen, I love what I do and I'm happy, but I am just a part of the big picture. And that's this big team of people. And we work together. It's a democracy. It's a complete democracy. And we just try to do things the right way. It's really that simple. We try to take care of people.
Very, very well said. And I like the thing that you mentioned as well, like in that answer, on how that it is being there for each other when there's the ups and downs, when it's essentially the the gardening period in a sense. I'm a big believer. My mentor always says there's a season for sowing and there's a season for reaping. When things are going well, it seems lovely and you smell the roses, but there's also a season of just hard work, rejections, and you cannot give up in that period. I am someone who, without the people around me, would have given up so many times in a sense, because I think maybe it's the ADHD, but I get really impatient with my own kind of little setbacks and all of that, even though I know theoretically at times that it's the season of sowing in a sense. How do you support the people around you during periods of time where it's the crunch time in a sense, where it's the time where things don't where you're doing the gardening versus reaping the fruits?
Yeah, I mean, it's that saying that Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. It's like yesterday, I'll give you an example. I felt like we got punched in the face because one of my a team, someone had worked with us for some years, who I was really close to and cared about deeply, resigned yesterday and is going to a competitor. And that is tough stuff because you build emotional attachments. They're people you have a great connection with. I mean, he's this guy, he gave me this like calendar, about stoicism, and we have a lot of, we have a tight relationship. And so for the team, I mean, a bunch of us were feeling down. One of my managers wrote to me that he didn't sleep last night. I mean, what we do is like we like you said, we have these down times. The key is getting back up every time, because when everything is great and easy, you're not really learning anything. You're just like, yeah, this is great. We're making money. Life is good. But right now we have inflation. Gas prices have gone up. Stock market has been a little crazy. We have a crazy war that Russia waged in Ukraine that's going on. That's a humanitarian crisis. There's a lot of volatility.
Forget
So
the
we're at a tough
pandemic. Yeah.
the pandemic. So we're in a tougher time. And so, but we've been through those tough times. We dealt with after 9/11, the crash of Lehman Brothers, so many different challenges, human and economic, that impact us. And so we just have to like get together, inspire each other, and be supportive. But sometimes it's just hard, and it's okay to feel a little bit down. It's very human to say, you know what? I'm struggling a little bit today. I'm going to be a little gentle with myself. I'm gonna have some ice cream, or I'm gonna go to a movie, or I'm gonna just say fuck it and just chill today and just like binge. I don't know. I love Seinfeld. I'm gonna watch Dave Chappelle today. I'm gonna do something that makes me feel good and laugh to take care of myself, because I'm having a hard day. We all have hard days. We all feel like imposters sometimes. That's life. The key is to like get back up. You are, the captain of your soul. You're in charge. You are in charge. And you just gotta you gotta talk yourself and build yourself up. Tell yourself a good story. Tell yourself a good story. You could tell yourself a shit story, and you can tell yourself a good story. Tell yourself that good story. You're alive, 2 arms, 2 legs. If you have them, great. You're breathing. You're above ground. Go kick ass. Go do it. You can do it. I believe in you. You can do it. That's what life's about. It goes by so quick. Life is for the living. We gotta enjoy it. You have a huge future ahead of you, Harsha. Huge, huge. Can't wait till you have your own like this big show. And I'm gonna be like, I was on her show. I remember her show. I'm gonna be talking about it. Watch. Mark my words.
Well, you're too kind, and I'll make sure to write you a thank you. No, I'm joking. But thank you so much. I normally ask for a message to the audience to wrap it up, but I cannot think of anything that you could say that is even more amazing and even more impactful to end the show on. So thank you so much for being on the show. And I think when I say that you're an inspiration to everyone out there, I don't mean just because you're extremely successful, but because you seem to have a very nuanced and enlightened take on a lot of topics and a lot of things that are bothering people. And you're not afraid to come out and talk about it. And you're not afraid to kind of think about it through. So I am going to say you are an inspiration, not just because of the successes, but because of the nuance and kind of the emotional intelligence that you put into every single thing that you do. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for being an amazing human being and for all of the work that you do. I really hope you appreciated this conversation as much as I did. And as I said, I think me and the audience will be rewatching this a couple of times to digest the breadth of it.
Harsha, thank you so much. You are a complete warrior and a gift. gift, a complete gift. Thank you so much, my love. Sending you light and love. You take care of yourself, and I will see you. I hope I get to meet you in person.
Likewise. I hope so too, and I hope we can keep in touch after this. And to all
I'm
of
here
our,
if you need anything, you know where to find me.
oh, thank you, very sweet of you. And to our audience, thank you for joining us as well. I know I completely ignored you, but that's what we get when we have amazing speakers. Sorry. And if you enjoyed today's show, make sure you let us know. Drop us an email, comment if you can. And as always, tune in again next Thursday at 10 p.m. This has been Changing Reality. Thank you guys for joining. Signing off.
Thank you, Harsha.
Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to Changing Reality. Changing Reality, where we bend reality all across the world. Only on WQHS Radio.